When you're born, okay, of course, they cut the physical cord, the cord linking you to your mother. And this is something that every single human being goes through, right? The cord gets cut. However, very few people cut the invisible cord. There's a physical one and an invisible one, and this runs them well into their adult life. So I'm gonna share a story here that illustrates this idea, cutting the invisible umbilical cord. Okay, and this is a client that I coached a few years ago, and his upbringing, he's from America, from Los Angeles actually, and he had a very, you could say, serious, disciplined upbringing. His parents, were both in the, I believe it was like doctor, lawyer type of field, and they expected him, he also had a brother and other siblings, to also be doctor, lawyer, or some kind of a profession that you could say in the mainstream is considered very, respectable, very reputable, and that was imposed on him from a very young age. However, this client wanted to make movies. That's what drove him, right? That's what tickled his pickle, so to say. And he was just very creative, and he just hated the route of lawyer, doctor, so on and so forth. Now, his brother, on the other hand, did go that route, right? So he turned out to be the kid who's, what's wrong with that kid, right? We can call him, Stevie. Like, what's wrong with Stevie? Why isn't he, becoming a doctor like his brother? What's wrong with him? And he went the rebellion route. So he's like, you know what? Screw this. When he was old enough, he moved away, and he moved all the way across the world to Eastern Europe in order to pursue his passion, to pursue movies, making film, and doing what he loves. Okay, that's the situation. Now, if you look at this from an outside perspective, from a purely just physical perspective, you'd think, well, great, right? Good for him, right? If you physically look at it, his parents are over there. He's no longer living with them. He's no longer living in the same country as them. He actually moved across the world, and he's now doing what he loves. So physically, there is separation. However, as I mentioned early on in this live stream, the invisible link between the two is still very much active. And what he noticed is, although physically he moved across the world, there was still a lot of guilt and self-sabotage when it comes to pursuing what he loved doing. Okay, he would start working on, say, a film, working on a script, working on a project. And although, again, he's a grown man, at this point, by the way, key information that I forgot to mention, he's in his 40s. Okay, so he's now in his 40s, a grown man, moved across the world, still experiencing guilt over doing what he loves. Like, oh, I know I shouldn't be doing this. Oh, this feels icky. Even though I love it, it feels icky. And he'd start thinking, oh, what are my parents thinking? I'm disappointing them. And it would lead to tons of procrastination, tons of self-sabotage. And, he was just not succeeding. So here's a classic example of physically you're away, but there's still an invisible link between his parents and him. Okay? And until you sever that, it's going to run you, okay? It's going to run you until, unfortunately for the majority of people, the day you die, okay? So he went the rebellion route. He went against the parents, moved away, yet still run by that. Another person, okay, another client comes to mind, may go the people pleaser route, where instead of rebelling, like, screw it, I'm gonna do my own thing, they just succumb and they become the good kid, right? It's like, whatever, my parents want for me, it's like not my own needs, what they want. And they're always pleasing the parents. And there's still that invisible link where they still act like a little kid. They don't act like their own person. They're their parents' person, their parents' property, their parents' thing, if you will. And that also runs them well into their adult life or until they die. Okay, so there is such a thing as these invisible links. You can think of invisible chains in a way that run you. It's not just with your parents. However, this is one of the big ones, but it could also be a different person or family member. Okay, a client I actually coached last Sunday on one of my private mentoring group calls. He was really run by his brother. Okay, so his situation really fast was, he's from Eastern Europe and he grew up and his upbringing was really tough. Okay, he had an older brother who would bully him all the time, call him names, put him down. And the parents wouldn't really step in that much, or they kind of would, but not so much. And it just really affected him. It became ingrained in his identity. It traumatized him. And that was his upbringing. Now here he is, a grown man, moved out, and actually cut contact with his brother. He no longer talks to his brother, yet it's still on the back of his mind, still running him to this day and causing a lot of self-sabotage. However, the way it runs him is, instead of, say, feeling guilty about it, he will purposely ruin different opportunities or beneficial situations to make his brother and family pay, right? It's like, you know what? You always put me down. Well, look at what happened. Look at where it led me. Are you happy? Do you see what you did to me? Right? Ruining external circumstances to make them realize and, regret it, so on and so forth. Okay, although physically away, there's still an invisible link. If you want to go even deeper, this also applies to past situations, right? Past trauma. If you've gone through something traumatic in your childhood, let's just say, although the event is in the past, right? That was years ago. And although even looking back, you have a new perspective, there's still an invisible link that runs you. And this is where you'll get triggered. Different things will poke at it and you just, you feel it take over, so to say. Okay, so we have these links, we have these invisible chains, and you must identify them and sever them. Now, when it comes to your parents, when it comes to family, this is something that every single human must do. They must cut the invisible umbilical cord. Okay, and this comes down to, number one, if you can, having a crucial conversation with your parents. Okay, this, by the way, a little side note, amazing book, Crucial Conversations. Get it, read it. Okay, we'll teach you how to navigate difficult situations and always base it, one of the key concepts, on facts and not stories. You will have to have a conversation where you let your parents know that, you are your own person, that you're going to do what you love, and that you still love them. It has nothing to do with them, but no, you're not theirs. Okay, you come from them, but you're not theirs. That's the conversation, if you can, one should have. Okay, a crucial conversation. If there's something that you just drives you, a purpose, a passion, it's sitting down and saying, hey, look, I'm gonna go do this. This is something that I must do. I know you don't necessarily agree with it. I know that you want what you think is best for me. You want me to be happy, but you don't know me. You aren't me. And we are going to have a disagreement here, but it has nothing to do with you. I love you, and I'm gonna do this. And you're gonna have to work through that. If you don't, as I said, this will keep on running you. That invisible cord will be there, and it will lead to massive resentment. If you put off what you love, and you might be thinking, I'm pleasing them, it's what they want. In the back of your mind, you're gonna be like, no, they held me back, screw them, and resentment will build. Okay, and if you go the rebellion route, it's the same thing. Whatever you decide to do, you must sever the invisible cord. You must have that crucial conversation, okay? And this here too, being okay where there are disagreements, but still loving each other is, if you even zoom out in terms of what's happening in the culture here today, what is lacking, right? We're living more and more in this culture where if there's any kind of disagreements, then we can't be friends, we can't like each other, you are the enemy. Another client comes to mind, his mother actually said that to him. It was like, look, you do what I think is best for you, and if you don't, we're not talking again. Like a full-on ultimatum. And that's crazy, right? It's like, wait a minute. What do you mean we're not talking? We're family. We can't love each other and still have disagreements, right? It's like if you take the whole extreme right, extreme left, it's like, they're the enemy. It's like, why can't we just all live and still have disagreements, which is normal, which is human, right? Trying to shape things into this world where there are no disagreements is absolutely insane. It goes against nature. If that's something that your parents even say, right, no matter how old you are, you're gonna have to have that talk and actually let them know, hey, it's okay for us to disagree on this, right? We can still love each other, but I'm my own person, right? I come from you, but I'm not yours. It's shifting from being a child, and when I'm saying being a child, this could be being a 30-year-old child, being a 40-year-old child, being a 56-year-old child, to being a grown-up, being independent, being an adult. Okay, so crucial conversations, if you can, is the first step. And number two, it's forgiving. When I say forgiving, I do not mean approving of what they did or didn't do or said or didn't say. I don't mean that you now have to see them all the time and get along with them. No, right? You can disapprove of something they did or didn't do. You can cut them out of your life. You never have to see them again, but you still must forgive them, because forgiveness has nothing to do with them. It has nothing to do with the other person. It has to do with you. Forgiveness is for you and only you. Okay? That is the ultimate cutting of that invisible cord. It's when you truly forgive. Okay? That is something every single person must do. It's reflect back and, can I forgive? Okay? There's specific meditations and releases around this that I give clients in my mentoring program that they can listen to and go through when it comes to that. But that is something that you must do. Okay? And when you do, suddenly you're free. If right now your parents, both of them, were to pass away, would anything change in terms of how you live your life? Okay, now I know this is dark, but humor me here. Imagine both your parents just passed away, vanished from existence. Okay, and let's just say you're over the grieving period, you've moved on, and you're finally at peace, but they're just gone. Right? If you're a Marvel fan, it's like, the snap of the finger, the Thanos thing, and they just vanish in the dust, they're gone. Would things change? Would you, number one, feel a sense of relief? And I know this is messed up to say, but for the majority of people, they actually do. They're like, oh, right? They're living with all that pressure of, I must get their approval, I must live up to what they want. Or even if you go the rebellion route, it's like, oh, but my parents, and there's a sense of relief. Doesn't mean you're a bad person. It just shows you how much you're run by this. And number two, what would change in terms of how you live your life? And for a lot of people, they're like, whoa, I would finally pursue this thing, right? My job, I would stop doing that. Because the majority of the reason they do, XYZ job is to get their parents' approval. So would anything change? And you can see just how strong the chains, those invisible chains, actually are. With forgiveness too, it's not about trying to convince yourself like, okay, I've forgiven them. It's not a logical thing. It's really done through letting go and felt sensation. And it might take time. You might be sinking into that perspective. Can I forgive? Can I forgive? And every part of you just screaming no. Like there's all those sensations like, no! That is what you must let go of and just keep at it. Okay? But this is really, in my opinion, and something that's been coming up in a lot of clients, especially recently, something that causes so much self-sabotage, so much self-doubt, so much pressure, and it just eats people up inside. Okay? So when it comes to your parents, forgiving, all about you, freeing yourself from it. Okay, there's that old saying, right? It's like, when someone screws us over, the way we make them pay is we make ourselves pay. It's like, no. Forgiving to free yourself so you can actually succeed. Regardless of what you do, every single person must forgive, not necessarily approve of, but forgive their parents.
Like this program is such a game changer. The way everything's structured and the material, it's been already, even for me, I'm noticing a crazy change in the way that my whole life's like playing out.
What you put together is just incredible. There's nothing like that.
I've just jumped like a million levels. It's just been a complete 180 for my experience of existing. That's awesome.
It's just been so huge in terms of so many of the things I'm finally understanding and realizing and epiphanies I'm having.
What you do is a huge inspiration to me, and I think it's one of the most beautiful things you can give to another human in this entire world.
You saved my life, man. I'm telling you, this is real, man.
Sometimes all it takes is just one person who believes in you. Find people who are where you are in life and model them, work with them. I would not be here if I didn't have people who held me accountable.
Wow.
I just felt a click and things are changing.
This program was just top notch.
Seriously, this is a masterpiece. This is perfect.
Everything, the way it's set up, the live calls, all the support from the coaches is incredible.
It's been nuts.
I just had my tears of joy.
This was the best decisions I ever made.
Thank you for creating something wonderful like this.
This program was phenomenal.
This program was amazing.
This program has definitely changed my life.
I know for a fact I'm in the right place.
This is exactly what I was expecting from the program.
It's been spectacular.
I feel really lucky to have found you.
Thank you so much, Julien. It's worth every dollar.